just because you got a lot of money coming through doesn't mean that you can just blow and go. You need to have structure in play.
Today, I'm talking with Ryan Bourgeois, founder of Bougie Aesthetics in Fort Worth, Texas, who walked away from the highest paying job he'd ever had on moral grounds, borrowed $20,000 from his parents to start in a 10 by 10 room, paid them both back in 2 weeks, and built a practice that hit $1.1 million in year 2, working only 3 days a week. We talk about what happens to your spending when the money starts coming in, the $80,000 lease mistake that still stings, and why hiring a practice manager was the best financial decision he's ever made. Hi, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to have you on Behind the Numbers.
Oh, thank you, Shannon, so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Why don't we get started with letting you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to start Bougie Aesthetics?
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Bourgeois. So, of course, that's where bougie comes from, is that word. So it just kind of fits. And my background's 18 years of emergency medicine, and then got into the aesthetics field roughly about 7 years ago. Started Bougie Aesthetics 5 years ago, and doing very well. Didn't have plans on getting into the aesthetics industry. My goal was to work in the ER for the rest of my life, but I came in contact with an ER doctor that was a medical director of a med spa. He said, "Hey, would you like to do these Botox injections or whatever this stuff is?" He didn't really know much about it. I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot." And did it, and had 2-week follow-ups with my patients, and they looked like they took a 5-year nap. I was like, okay, what is this stuff, and how far can I go with it? And how young can I make people actually look? And yeah, and I did. I've taken it to the extreme. I absolutely love it. It's a blast.
That's awesome. I love that just kind of natural evolution of business owners. That's what we see with a lot of the people we talk to and a lot of our clients. So makes sense that you were able to follow that passion. In terms of daily operations, what would you say is working really well right now for you? And what are some situations maybe that you're currently navigating that aren't going so well?
So the things that are working well for me is the way that I treat the face. So I'm very different. A lot of people that come to these med spas or even a plastic surgeon's office or whatever, they get treated with all these different hyaluronic acid fillers that just kind of fill the face. I don't treat the face with a bunch of fillers. I treat the face bio-regeneratively. So I use a lot of collagen stimulators like Sculptra or Radiesse, or I can even take your own blood, heat your blood up, turn your blood into a filler, and inject it back into your face. I'm 49 years old. Most people think that I am in my 30s. My wife is also roughly 52 years old, and she still looks like she's in her 30s. So what's working well? That's what's working well, is how I've learned how to treat the face from a bioregenerative standpoint. What's not working well? Being a business owner. As providers and practitioners, we learned how to treat the body, treat the disease, in this case, treat the face and the process of aging. But being a business owner and learning the backside of whether it's website, whether it's marketing, payroll, accounting, these things drive me crazy. Like they pull me out of the art form of me doing what I do on the day to day. And I'd say that was the hard part, even to the point to where I had to get a business coach to help me. And I didn't know when's the right time to hire someone. Who do you hire? Do you buy more devices to grow the practice, or do you try to buy back your time, so to speak, and pay for people, employ them that help you? And that's some of the faults that I've made over the years, was buying these $100,000 of machines. I got Porsches and Ferraris parked in this room back here. It's ridiculous. And I wasted all of this money when I should have been buying back my own time with maybe a medical assistant, maybe a front office staff, maybe a practice manager, right? You tend to look at what your patients come in and what they need, and you're like, I'm just going to buy that for them. I'm just going to buy that for them. Well, transitioning that to be profitable is the hardest part. Do you know that you have to put in the marketing? You have to put in the advertising. You've got to get the befores and afters. That takes a lot of time. So yeah, I'd say learning the operations of running a business. I just recently hired a practice manager, and that was by far the best thing I've ever done. I wish I would have done that years ago, and that would have taken a lot of weight off of me. But you learn.
You live and learn for sure. And I think too, sometimes, Ryan, we get in this mindset of like, I wish I would have done something a long time ago. And yet you probably weren't ready for that a long time ago, right? Maybe you were, but at the same time, look how much you've learned. So now you actually can have better conversations maybe with that practice manager because you've gone through some of it yourself before now. So I just really appreciate that vulnerability and sharing that, because we hear that again all the time. Like people think
I'm just going to go into business and do the thing that I love for myself and don't realize how much more there really is in owning a business like that. As far as the finances, then you kind of have alluded to it with the Porsches and Ferraris that are in that room. What are some of the biggest financial bright spots you've had? And then what are some of the growth edges that you're navigating as far as finances go?
So whenever I was by myself and it was just myself, one of the things, my goal was, how do I hit $1 million? And I only want to work 3 days a week. That was the goal of mine. And that was done actually in year 2. But I did. I hit 1.1 million working just 3 days a week. And so I was like $6,400 a day. And then it was like, I think it was 90 something thousand a month or something, like 38,000, something like that. And then I had the numbers and I had it memorized at the time. That was years ago. And that was one of my goals, was to hit that mark. And I knew that I could do it by doing pan-facial rejuvenation throughout the entire face and treating the whole face, and not just people come in and go, I want this and I want that and I want that. Well, in our line of work, we assess, we diagnose, and we treat. But that was probably one of the best. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was hard, but it was a major goal of mine. And when I got to those numbers, that's when I started what you call self-sabotage. You're buying these devices, and that's where some of the financial mistakes have been made, is getting these devices and not realizing it's not like a car loan. When you buy a laser, they just say, hey, this is your payment. And you think, oh, okay, so it's paid off in how many years? Well, you should calculate what it adds up to, because come to find out, if you wait the 5 years to pay it off or the 3 years to pay it off, sometimes it can accrue all the way to, there was one that was like 30 to 40% interest. And I had no idea until my accountant brought it to my attention. She was like, Ryan, do you realize you're paying like a 40% interest? I'm like, what are you talking about? My payment's $2,300 a month. She goes, do the math. Multiply that by the amount of years that you have it, and what does that come up with? Whenever you signed the contract, what did you pay for the device? What you thought you paid for the device? I said, holy, this is 40% interest. This is insane. So those mistakes, mayhem, really cost me, and then I've made the mistakes too financially. Well, signing on a dotted line before really thinking about it. I signed on a lease of an area that I decided not to move forward with. That signature cost me over $80,000, all because on a little piece of paper, because I signed a lease saying that I was going to take over that spot, and then I changed my mind and I didn't. And I wanted to be in a high rise. I'm in downtown Fort Worth. 17 floors up, spectacular view. And that's what I wanted. But again, it cost me $80,000 and then some to get out of that situation. I've made some costly errors, but I'm damn sure we'll do it again.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit maybe about like what are some of the things that you've put in place for yourself to make sure that you don't do it again?
Hiring a practice manager that plays devil's advocate very well. I do dumb things like I'll pay for this and pay for that. And when you got money just coming in, you're just like, oh, just buy it. Oh, just buy this. And she's really good about saying, no, you don't need that. We can do it this way, which is really nice. I think it's your staff and your team and your support and people, though you may be the business owner, there's still someone that needs to put you in check, make sure you don't make the mistakes.
Yeah, having that accountability partner, that's what I'm hearing, right? Somebody that you have to run decisions by. So I guess that's my question. Have you just made an internal decision in your mind, like I'm not buying anything without talking to my practice manager, or she the one, or they the one doing all of the purchases, or like what does that decision-making process look like between the two of you?
Correct. So I will go through her. I was going to do some crazy retreat thing for business owners that was going to be up in Canada, and it was like $15,000. And she was like, Ryan, absolutely not. That is just not a very good business. And I was like, yeah, but I'm going to learn how to do. And she's like, it's not a smart move. So she's like, just maybe later, but let's hit some goals. Let's try to set some parameters. So she's really good about saying we need to increase by 25% or 15% month to month. And when we see that growth, then yeah, we are rewarded. Just because you got a lot of money coming through doesn't mean that you can just blow and go. You need to have structure in play. And that's pretty much what I'm learning. I need someone to say no, because even as an adult, you can still act like a kid, and be like, well, I want that and I want this and I'm going here and I'm going there. And I've toned it down. And I usually do. I've been like the last few years to get as good as I've gotten. I've done a lot of my trainings all over the world. I'm on faculty at Aviva Academy in the Netherlands. I spend a lot of time in Amsterdam training out there to learn some of the techniques from some of the best in the world. So I was notorious for investing in myself. There's nothing wrong with investing in yourself. And that's how I got to be as good as I am. And every time I visit my accountant, I feel like I'm at the principal's office. I feel like I'm in trouble. She's like, well, we see that you purchased a Porsche and I don't think that was a good decision, Ryan. You got to stop this. So apparently, if you haven't learned anything from this podcast, It's been a problem. And I'm telling people around me to keep me in check.
I really appreciate though you sharing that, Ryan, because so many people, there is a thing, it's called Parkinson's law, right? The more of a resource we have, the more of it we use. And so the more time we have, the more we use, the more money we have, the more we use. And so you're not the only one that, has success in business and hits that $1 million or hits the next goal, whatever it is, and then goes and blows money or goes and spends money before you even have that success, right? It happens to all of us, myself included. And so I love to talk to people about like, what are you putting in place to curb that, right? Because there's a lot of different ways that people can curb that. Hiring a business manager, going to see your accountant. The thing is, you have to go see your accountant, right? You can't just hire an accountant and then let them expect to do it on your own. You have to have those meetings and sit in the uncomfortable of feeling like you're in the principal's office or whatever that feels like for the different people. And so I just appreciate you sharing that and that you are being uncomfortable and learning from that. And you're right. We all want to invest in ourselves, and there's a time and place to do that. And we have to make sure that we're doing it in a profitable way so that we can continue to do the thing that we love to do for the people that we love to do it for as well. I know also that you just announced a partnership with Viva Aesthetics, bringing Aviva into Texas. And I'm guessing that that had a financial impact on your business. How do you think about that differently than maybe a traditional private equity exit in the future?
That's a great question. So yeah, Aviva, I've been in talks with them for about a year now. And I've had multiple private equity people come through the door and just be like, we can offer you this, or we'll buy this and that. And I'm not trying to sell my company. I'm not trying to really just X out at any time, but I'm trying to plan for the long run, right? And I actually learned it from, if you look at Elon Musk, he really only owns maybe 9 to 10% of Tesla. If you look at Jeff Bezos, he really only owns maybe, I think, 12 or 13% of Amazon. So in order for you to grow as a business owner, you have to team up with people in the industries and get investors. And I never really understood that as a practitioner, as a provider. I don't know business like that. I didn't even know what EBITDA was, and I just kept hearing it thrown around. And now I'm learning all of this stuff. I didn't even really know what private equity was. I didn't know who these people are. I didn't understand any of this stuff. I've never been in business. I've been in the emergency room taking care of sick people the majority of my life. So to talk about money and finance and business, it's completely foreign. But Aviva, that's what they're for. They are to help you get your EBITDA. And then we are partnering up with multiple practices throughout the US. All is to get, 30, 40 different practices throughout the US. And then we present that and then we sell all together, but we don't sell the whole thing. We sell a portion and then we reserve, I think it's going to be like 50% at least, over 50% of the rights. So we're selling a portion of that. And I need that to help to grow. If there is a way, if we are going to sell down the road, because there's probably going to be two sales. There'll be one where it's going to be the half or whatever you want. And then there's going to be, or you can just sell it all and walk away. I'm already an employee of Bougie Aesthetics, but it's nice to have someone on the back end because I'm giving them carte blanche to everything. They'll have my bank accounts. They'll see all of my cost of goods. They'll see what my employers are getting paid. So it's someone that is business savvy, that knows how to run businesses, that can literally oversee my entire practice, compare my practice with the other practices throughout the US and say, how can we maximize that EBITDA for whenever it goes to the time to sell the company? I love what I do. I'm not going anywhere. And some people look at it as like you're selling out or you're leaving. It's not that. Some people, I don't like being a business owner. It's not fun. I can't even go on vacation without my phone going off, or you don't have a life. And it would be nice for me to punch in and punch out, even if it is a business that I started. I don't care. I don't mind answering to a boss. I don't have to have this full ownership of, it doesn't bother me. But yeah.
That's awesome that you've found that partnership that you feel really excited and comfortable with. Like you said, kind of that relationship of having a boss and punching in and punching out, doing what you love and still being able to go on vacation. So that's great for you that you've found that partnership. So we talked a little bit about the future and exit. I want to go way back to the beginning because I found this quote from you when you were leaving I'd imagine emergency room medicine and starting Bougie, your daughters asked how you were going to pay for everything. And you quoted the Bible. And I just think that's a really powerful origin story. What did the financial reality of that first year actually look like? And what do you wish you had known going in?
Terrific question. So it was a situation at the med spa that I was previously working for. It was the best job I ever had. I really, really enjoyed it. There was a situation where I pretty much, it's just against my morals and beliefs or whatever, and I had to get out. It was a shame. It was the most money I ever made. It was the most fun I ever had. I was out of the ER. I was doing what I loved. I was getting paid great. I could punch in, punch out. Wasn't a business owner, but I had to take a side. And we were actually going on our way to the beach, and my kids were smaller at the time. And I told them, I said, I want y'all to realize what's happening here. I'm stepping away from my business. From another business to start my own company. And you guys, I'm responsible for taking care of all of you. Even my wife, I took her out of work the day she went into labor. And I said, if God so feeds the birds of the air, what does he think he's going to do for you? Which is what Jesus says. And I told them that, and I said, I want you to watch what's going to happen. Watch what happens when you put your faith in God and do what you believe in and give it your all. And that's what happened. So I started off with a 10-foot by 10-foot room. It was much smaller than this. And that was the room that I actually did over the $1 million. I was in a little bitty shipping container, and I started it. I borrowed $10,000 from my mom. I borrowed $10,000 from my dad, which my dad was a little reluctant, and he was kind of scared. He said, do you know what you're doing? And I knew, meanwhile, I know I was doing over 80 grand a month at the previous place that I was at. I was like, yeah, Dad, I'm going to be fine. So even, I don't know how many people or how many clients are going to follow me. I don't know how that's going to go down, but I had faith. I had trust. I paid my dad back in probably, I think 2 weeks, my mom too. And my dad was like, what are you doing? Like, where did you come from? I'm like, Dad, I'm telling you, I'm really good at this. Like, this is where I belong. And he's like, oh my gosh, maybe we need to open up more of these. I was like, well, maybe down the road, maybe. So, but that's kind of what it looked like. And it was a little scary. I did take another job in downtown Dallas working as a nurse practitioner there just because I was a little nervous, still wanted to have some kind of a backup plan, but I wasn't there. I think maybe 6, 7 months, and Bougie started growing so fast. I was like, I don't need to be here. And I said, I just need to give my focus on to the business that I'm building.
That's awesome.
It was scary, but I've read the Bible through and through many a times, and my faith I know it's very strong, and I know that God pays my bills. I know that I don't. So I know where the money comes from. So
yeah, it is scary starting a business. I think we all have that at some level at the very beginning, but I'm a huge proponent of following your values, knowing your values and running your business based off of those values and having company values that everybody's really aware of. So I love that you had that faith to support you through that and then stuck to your values. And when things weren't running the way you wanted them to, just figured out I'm going to take the leap and it's going to all work out for sure. So that's cool. And you also mentioned a little bit ago that you are also running an Academy of Regenerative Aesthetics and you have your clinical practice. So you have two different businesses running at the same time. For somebody who's already said owning a business isn't something that is their strong suit or that you're maybe comfortable doing, how do those interact and how do you balance the two businesses?
So it was hard. The reason I started the Academy of Regenerative Aesthetics has to do with, from the outside looking in, you may or may not know, but in this industry, there's pharmaceutical companies that have a lot of power. And they come in here and they say, you need to do this filler. So there's a filler for the chin, the cheeks, the jawline, the nasolabial fold, the under eyes. It's all. So they get these fillers approved for all this stuff. And then they come into a practice and they tell you how to do this. Well, I never believed in that. So I always believed in treating the face from a bio-regenerative standpoint, which the best in the world at Sculptra, which Sculptra's been around for over 20 years, is Shino Bay down in Florida. He is a big mentor of mine. And I've trained with him 2 to 3 times a year for the last 3 or 4 years. I've adopted his techniques. And then Radius is another biostimulator, collagen stimulator. And that was Yanni Van Lokum in Amsterdam, which is why I'm on faculty at Uma Academy, because I've been training with him so many times because I wanted to learn. So my thing was, how do I rebuild the face from a bioregenerative standpoint using Sculptra and using Radius and only using fillers judiciously? And that's kind of how I created the Academy. Is I said, there's a better way. And I felt like it's an obligation of mine to teach providers to think differently. When I teach them and when I teach my patients, I go through a presentation. So there's a TV that's right back there, and I do a presentation on every new patient that comes in. the patient gets the exact same presentation that the doctors get. And I show them what the skull looks like at ages 20, 50, and 80. And I show them how the bones change. People don't realize that the eye opens up larger. They don't realize that the maxilla bone here moves back 6.5 millimeters by the time you're 50. They don't realize that the mandible also demineralizes and there's bone resorption, bone remodeling. They don't know that you get frontal bossing because of the changes that happen in the frontal bone. They don't know that the temple goes in deeper as you get older. And that's just foundational. We haven't even talked about the superficial fat and the deep fat. So I try to educate the doctors and other providers and patients on what are the foundational changes, how is the skin, the surface changes, what is the superficial fat changes, and what is the deep fat changes. And don't pay attention so much. There's a filter for the nasal labial fold, and there's one for the cheek and the chin and the jaw, and the other has it's all BS. But to look at the face from a standpoint of layers. So I felt like it was my obligation to create this academy. And I'll be honest with you, it's not that I really wanted to. Everything with Bougie's going fine, but it was something that I was like, God dang it, these people need to understand because I see so many complications. Every day I got somebody coming in my office with filler in their under eyes or filler stuck in their jawline. And then I have to pull out the ultrasound. I've got to find it. I got to dissolve it. I feel like it's my obligation to train others. And I set that up as a completely different LLC just because I had a feeling a private equity company might come through, right? And they may want to take Bougie, but I don't want to give them the proprietary information in regards to my academy and how I do things, because a private equity company can come in and then they can have everything. So I needed that whole nother entity in itself to back me. God forbid, I don't know, something else, something goes wrong, or I don't know. So it was just a part of me that was just trying to diversify,
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense and is a really good point for people who are opening up different revenue streams, like realizing, is it close enough that it makes sense to have it in the same LLC, right? Or do we need to have completely different LLCs? And you bring up a really good point, Ryan, that educating doctors is very different from patient care. And those need to be completely different LLCs, even though maybe that wasn't your dream to have two businesses ever. But again, kind of what I also heard in that description, Ryan, is going back to those values of like patient care is the most important. There aren't fillers for all these different things. That's all BS. And I want to get that out there. It sounds like you felt like you had an ethical obligation to get that out there based on your values of being ethical and that you just chose the education route to do that. So I really applaud that because I think it's hard, especially for somebody who doesn't really want to go into business to say, no, I have an obligation to do this again, to go into another business and take that leap. So that's awesome for you.
And the next obligation that I have is to publish. I have to publish this stuff. I have other people in my industry that give me a hard time. They're like, you're hands down probably one of the best in the world. And nobody's results, there's befores and afters compared to yours. You need to publish what you're doing and how you're doing it, or no one else is going to know even how to do it. So that's the next minute. So that's where I'm trying to get. I'm trying to gather all the patients that I've treated in certain ways and aspects. And now how do I publish that and give that and put that out into the world? And so people can learn how to do it. I'm not trying to gatekeep to myself, but yeah, I would say that's the next phase.
That's cool. So I have to ask, earlier you said you're trying to do a lot of things, working 3 days a week. How many days a week are you working right now?
Oh yeah, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, it was fun. I said, well, it was the best year ever. But I'm here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm here 5 days a week. Wednesday, I do an admin day, but yeah.
There's seasons for everything, right? There's seasons for growth, and then there are seasons to enjoy it. Sounds like you're in a growth season right now, which makes a whole lot of sense with everything going on. As we wrap up today, this has been amazing. I really enjoyed the conversation. Is there any one thing that you want to leave every wellness business owner with as you walk away from this conversation?
I guess the major thing is stick to your values and your beliefs and don't change just for somebody else's sake. Stand true to what you believe in and move forward with that. You will be successful,
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. If somebody's interested in learning more about Bougie or the Academy or what you do, what's the best place for them to go? And if you want to share a little bit about that, what it would look like at the Academy, feel free to do that too.
Yeah, we always have the website, Bougie Aesthetics. .net, and then we've got the Academy of Regenerative Aesthetics.com. And then we have our Instagram. So my Instagram personal is Bougie Injector, which is pretty easy to remember. And then we have the Bougie Aesthetics, and then we have the Academy of Regenerative Aesthetics. All those Instagrams are really good. People DM us, and then I take those DMs that have to do with trainings and so forth, and I give them to our practice manager, and our practice manager schedules the trainings. that we do have. Sometimes we're doing one Thursday where sometimes they're observational. So there's 25 students that will be watching me inject and the different techniques. And then sometimes they're personal. Sometimes they're hands-on where they're small. We've got a doctor, a few nurses from Abilene came in last couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and came in and wanted to learn some of the sculpture techniques that I do. And we let them have hands-on for the full day. I travel to people's offices. There are a few doctors that are trained out in Indiana not too long ago, flew out there, spent the entire day with them. It usually looks like didactic in the morning, and then we usually treat 3 to 4 patients in the evening. And I try to give them some of the online material that I have. I have some of the trainings online. I give them access. So when I show up to their office, you need to know what we're talking about, and take it seriously like you would anything else in medicine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Ryan. It was great sharing with you.
Well, thank you so much. You have a good day, and I look forward to getting some of the stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Numbers. If today's conversation resonated with you, subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss a new episode every week. And if you're a health or wellness business owner who's ever wondered what's really going on behind your own numbers, I'd love to talk. Head to fitforprofit.com to learn more or book a complimentary clarity call. We'll see you next week.